For more on the verdict and how it's shaking up the campaign trail, let's bring in Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist, and Joel is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. So we know, Leslie, that the Trump campaign has raised some $34 million, I believe, in the wake of this verdict. The question, of course, becomes beyond the base, beyond the people who fervently support Donald Trump. Does this verdict expand to, or at least allow him to expand his grip on the Republican Party beyond those people who, no matter what he does, no matter what he says, are planning on voting on for him? 34 convictions. He's a convicted felon. If you're the suburban mom in Virginia, what does this mean for you?
I don't think it means as much as Democrats would like to think it means. I think that in many ways, there's this political calculus, and we've heard it over and over again. Where's the suburban mom, the college-educated mom, those folks that are in the middle? I think the question, it's going to remain a question mark in terms of where those are. I think those are voters that are going to be more sympathetic and want to hear have a bigger understanding and digest. They're not going to be so quick to respond in this kind of stunned, furious nature of the Republican base kind of coalescing together. Independent voters are going to kind of take this in, digest it, and then decide for themselves. But I think by comparison, when they listen to the question of was this weaponization of the judicial system, was this a witch hunt for somebody like this? And when they think about the fact that it took less than 20 minutes per conviction, of the 34, kind of meddling this all up together, but this short amount of time that it took for the jury to deliberate and then convict, I think it gives people pause. And that's where the opportunity is for Republicans. And they're going to continue to move forward. If you saw the RNC chairman this morning with the same game plan, talking about the economy, talking about the border, and talking about, high interest rates and the inability to have the American dream, that's fundamentally where the RNC is going to go.
So, Joel, as you know, President Biden has wanted no parts of this court case at all, has not commented at all. The Biden campaign, too, has really not weighed in until sort of at the end. I think Robert De Niro showed up in New York City along with some Capitol Police officers. But really, they haven't done much in regards to reacting to this. And I'm wondering if maybe that's the game plan, that maybe reacting to this actually feeds in to Donald Trump's narrative that this was a political sort of attack. I mean, can the Biden campaign do anything with this conviction?
Well, to your question about is it the strategy to essentially be close to the vest, as a Democrat, I would say I hope not, for a couple of reasons. One, you have to tell a story and a narrative and help the public understand and contextualize what's happening here. This is not the Biden administration prosecuting Donald Trump politically motivated. This is a local DA. This is Donald Trump being treated as anybody would under the law. And this is Donald Trump with a flagrant flouting of the law. And you have to narrate that for the American people. I was particularly disappointed that President Biden did not go to camera yesterday and give a version of what happened to not just his base, but to the American people who I think are looking for that type of context. I think it was a missed opportunity. And I understand there were a lot of reasons why President Biden might have been down. I know yesterday was the anniversary of his son's death. Totally understand that. But this is a moment where I think the American people are craving some contextualization and they need to hear the voice of the president. And when you talk about the story of this election, strong versus weak, the moments you show up strong are moments like these, where people are expecting you to step into the fire. And I understand that President Biden and his team are probably thinking about other considerations. They don't want to appear to be politically motivated. But I think yesterday was a missed opportunity for them not to have the president on camera.
Leslie, let me ask you about the language that Republicans, really, Bob Costa this morning on CBS Mornings coined a term that I asked him if he coined it. He called them red tie Republicans. Red tie Republicans. Let me ask you about the language. And it feels like as if a lot of those Republicans are in positions of power or are vying to be former President Trump's vice presidential pick. I want to ask you about the language that you're hearing from Republicans. You're starting to hear the phrase banana republic. And it strikes me that they are suggesting that if had the verdict come out in Donald Trump's favor, well, then the American jurisprudence system is simply the best legal system on the entire face of the earth. But because it did not come out in their favor, they don't like the outcome of the verdict. Well, now we're living under a banana republic. If they believe, if the election had gone in Donald Trump's favor, we have the freest and fairest elections on the face of the earth. But because the election did not go in Donald Trump's favor, well, we're living in a banana republic. The election is rigged. In other words, the language that's being used right now, to me, as somebody who's reported from countries who are led by corrupt leaders, who are led by people who have their fingers on the justice system or on the press, it seems as it's very, very dangerous. And the lesson that we're learning now is that if you don't like something, it's rigged. Would you advise, if you were still working on campaigns, for Republicans to be using that type of language, sowing the seeds of doubt into the very systems that make America what this country is?
I'm still there in campaigns, Vlad, and we talk about these things every day. But I think what's interesting about your question, I think Republicans would frame it differently. They would proudly say they're red tie Republicans because this is folding in, and this conversation really kind of folds also into what Joel was saying about contextualizing. Republicans believe, as the president consistently said, this was a witch hunt. This is personal persecution of somebody who is your political enemy, which is done, they would argue, in these banana republics where you use these powerful systems to take out your political enemy. Had President Biden come out and taken his victory lap, it would have further kind of been fodder for this idea that the Democrats are using every maneuver possible to take out President Trump because he is leading in the polls, especially, among a broad array of voters who are not just Republicans. That's the political pitfall there. And I think there's also going to be, to your point, it's a litmus test. They are keeping names of who does step out and support the president at this very difficult time. But it's going to come back to, and I think that's what's interesting. I've been on the phone, and we're in the field right now doing some research with voters. And again, there's consistent data. It's not moving the dial much in terms of how people are looking at the president, but it does make them question, how do you come to 34 counts of a conviction in less than 11 hours? If you could, by comparison, John Edwards had 6 counts against him, and it took him 2 weeks for the jury to decide. And then they still had a mistrial. They couldn't even agree on all of them. So much about this seems unfair. And that unfair streak is what's going to ignite voters going into the fall.
All right, Leslie and Joel, great talking to you on this Friday. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.